Okay, so the wheel is in the truing stand now. The next step is to start getting some tension in the spokes and then move the wheel from the truing stand into the bike for the second part of the truing. Why are we doing it like this? Well, the short answer is that if you have access to the bike frame that the wheel is intended to be ridden in, it's best to build the wheel to fit into that bike frame. Every wheel set you get from a shop will be made, hopefully, to be perfectly straight. Perfectly straight means the rim sits perfectly centred over the axle. So the middle of the axle here will be where the rim sits on. Now that's good, of course, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect for the frame that you're going to put it in. Why? Well, I am going to go out on a limb here and say that never in the history of all bicycle manufacturing ever has there been made a frame that's perfectly straight. The chances are, in fact I'm saying definitely, your frame, or anybody's frame, is not going to be straight. Now the rear triangle will be out of line, the dropouts may not be parallel, the brake hanger, if you're running a rim brake, will perhaps not be central. There'll be all sorts of alignment issues because these things are mass produced, right? And they're not really produced to decent tolerances because they want to get them out of the factory as soon as possible and sold. And most people don't complain about things, so they get away with it. If somehow you're watching this video in 2116, 100 years in the future, I'll be dead. But I would like you to enjoy the historical context of this and see the kind of shit we had to deal with in 2016 where people were buying bikes and products that were not straight. Okay? So, back to the point. What we're going to do is we're going to bring up the spoke tension on all of the spokes in the truing stand here, purely because it's a bit easier to sit behind and I can see what I'm doing and I can watch YouTube videos on my computer, which is just to the left of it. Bring the tension up to about 60% of its target tension, which will allow me to look at the way the spokes sit, find any weird idiosyncratic things going on with the rim, and look at how it all works and get a feel for everything. Then we'll move over to the bike and do the final tensioning and get it straight into the frame it's going to be in over there. Okay, so the first thing we do is we are going to add a control point to the build. Now that will give us a starting point. Now the control point will be getting each nipple to just cover the thread on each spoke. Now at the moment there's various amounts of thread sticking out of each spoke because I've just wired it up myself quickly. We will get each nipple to just about cover each thread, and that will create the first control point. From there we'll go around the whole wheel, do each one up by one complete turn, go around again, and eventually that will start adding a bit of tension to the spokes. From there we'll keep doing that procedure, keeping an eye out for any spokes which get a bit more tension in them than the rest of them. If we see any spokes that get more tension in them than the rest, we'll go back on the tension on those spokes, then continue going round on every spoke to bring up the tension evenly across the whole wheel. This will eliminate any tight spots early on in the tensioning. So first thing then, I'll show you get all of the nipples to the end of the threads. Then we'll go around and start doing them up, keeping an eye out for any tight spokes. Okay, so I'll show you that now. Okay, to give you an idea of what we're doing, this is the nipple, that's the spoke. Hopefully this is in focus. This dark area here is the thread. Okay, so we are going to turn the nipple all the way to the end of the thread there on every spoke going around the wheel. So that will put the nipple in the same position on every spoke So that will be a good starting point. Now it's not perfect, but it's the best we can do at this moment. And of course we can fix any errors later on. But it's, yeah, like I say, it's a good starting point. So let's do that now. Really easy then. We just put the spoke key on, turn the nipple around. This one here you could probably see quite well. It's got the blue spoke prep on it. So we just turn it until it's covered. There we go. Again, go all the way around. That's just about covered. Now we've got loads of spokes to do. So I'll do that now and get back to you when I've finished. Right, that's done now. So the next step is to go around every spoke again and give it a full rotation. Starting at the valve hole, the next step is to do a full rotation on every spoke. Now by full rotation, I mean put the spoke key in, go round all the way. There you go, one full rotation. So we'll do that on every spoke all the way around, which takes forever, of course, so you don't want to watch that. Okay, again, that's done, but there's still absolutely no tension in the spokes. So we are going to have to go around again and again and again, like this, one rotation at a time. So we need to continue doing this until we start to feel some tension coming in the spokes. I'll do that now, then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so that's tensioned up a little bit. I went around several times, turning each nipple by the same amount each time. I used a spoke key for this, a Park spoke key, which I really like. You don't have to use a spoke key. You can always use a driver to go into the top of the nipple and turn it like that, if that's how you prefer. Maybe that's a bit quicker. Some people like that. I like the hands-on approach. Maybe I'm a bit OCD. I feel like if I use the spoke key, I can really get a good feel of how the wheel is coming together, rather than using a driver, which seems a bit hands-off. But again, totally up to you what you do. Each one has its merit. Okay, so let's have a look at the general tensions then, and we can see if we can find any spokes that are either too high or too low at the moment. So this is the non-drive side and that's the drive side. So what you do, you just wriggle each one. Yeah, there you go, look. That's a bit low, okay? So what you do then is just turn that nipple by one rotation to bring it up a little bit. That's all right. That's a bit low there. That seems all right. It's okay. So yeah, this loose one, just turn the nipple by one rotation or two, just to bring it in line generally with the rest of the non-drive side spokes. Don't worry about the tension at the moment. You're just trying to get a general sort of balance. Again, do the same on the drive side. So that's a bit loose there. So that could do with coming up a little bit. That's a bit loose there. So there's a few loose spokes. Just bring them up a little bit. Nothing seems too tight with this, which is good. Okay, so I'm going to go around and I'm going to fix those loose spokes. Okay, so all of the tensions are now even and fixed. So let's move on to the next stage. Now, at the moment, what we've been doing is just turning each nipple by the same amount on the drive side and the non-drive side, which gives the wheel a bit of tension across all the spokes, but the drive side and the non-drive side need to be different tensions. So there's a high chance at the moment that your wheel is sitting too far over towards the non-drive side. Now that's very easy to fix at this point. What you do is you find the reference point on your touring stand or in your bike frame, which is about the centre of this here. Then you need to undo each non-drive side by one turn and tighten each drive side by one turn. Do this again and again until the wheel shifts over to generally about the right position. Don't worry too much about movement like this in the rim, because that will be fixed later on when we stick it in the bike and true it up properly. Now at this point we need to talk about spoke tension. Every wheel has a target tension which you need to get to. The target is mainly decided by you under the guidelines of the hub manufacturer, the rim manufacturer and common sense. This wheel I have decided to do the drive side to 115 kilograms and the non-drive side will sit at whatever it sits at with the wheel centered and the drive side at 115. So as we've started to put some tension into the spokes, we need to start measuring this tension to make sure we're getting it even across all of the drive side spokes and the non-drive side spokes. Now, we should treat the drive side and the non-drive side as two different things from this point on. The drive side will be much higher than the non-drive side, so therefore that's where we set the limit at. You're not going to get the non-drive side to 115 kilograms. If you do, your wheel will look very strange. So from now, we need to start using a spoke tension meter. I strongly believe that you can't make wheels without a tension meter. Some people say that they can do it by feel and plucking the spokes and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry guys, but that is basically bullshit. The difference between an over-tensioned spoke and a spoke that's just right is minuscule, especially when you are looking at low spoke count wheels. You really have to use a spoke tension meter to properly build a wheel. It's as simple as that. Now, these things can range from being ridiculously expensive digital devices to being your common or garden park tool TM1, which we're going to use today. Okay, this thing is not the most accurate thing in the world. I'm sure there's a lot of criticism of it, but it's all right and it gets wheels done okay. So we're going to use this. Now, what we do is we go around each spoke on the drive side, we measure the tension. They'll all be different at the moment. They'll all be all over the place. But we're going to slowly bring them in line with each other. Not aggressively, but gradually, keeping an eye also on the non-drive side. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is to go round the wheel and just measure the tensions. This black tape here, I keep to mark which spokes are too high and which spokes are too low at any point in the truing procedure. Now, my little system is, if a spoke is too high, I put it, in my mind, high up on the spoke. If the spoke is too low, I put it, again, in my mind, low on the spoke. So then I can go around and I can see where the spokes are that are too high and where they're too low. Okay, now let's talk about truing and tensioning then. Look at this example here. If that spoke is too high and that one's too low, the wheel may be straight, but the tensions are wrong. So ideally, we would have each spoke being correct, which would mean lowering the tension on this one, down here, and increasing the tension on this one, which if we do it properly, won't affect the lateral true or the radial true of the wheel. We'll get onto that a bit later when we go to the bike to fit it into the bike frame, but that's the general theory. So the next step is just to go around the wheel, check the tension of each spoke, find the average, then find the spokes that are too high, find the spokes that are too low, and bring them into the average at this current point in tension. Okay, we'll do that on the drive side and the non-drive side. After doing that, I found that most of the tensions were okay. Some of them were a bit too high and some of them were a bit too low. So I'm going to, again, fix the tensions, making them all equal around the wheel. Now at the moment the tensions are about halfway towards 115 kilograms. So still a lot of room to play with, and we can still true the wheel, we can still make the wheel true radially. It's not too high to fix any truing issues, which is very important. If you go too high too soon before you fix any truing issues, then you don't really have any room to play with. So about 50% of the tension at the moment is where we start leveling things off and making things even. Then we can start focusing on truing it at the same time as bringing up the tension. Okay, so I'll do that now. I'm going to go from the drive side first, level off the tensions, make sure they're all even. Then I'm going to go around the non-drive side and check it in the same way. Now at this point, the spoke tension is increasing. So that means that turning the nipple will actually twist the spoke around at the same time because of the tension in the system. So we need something to hold the spoke and stop it turning around. Well, we've got this, a spoke holder. This is a Mavic spoke holder, which I got from some old Mavic Cosmic Carbonate SR wheels years ago, that I've hacksawed in a smaller slit to fit the Sapim CX-Ray spokes, and that's a perfect spoke holder. So what I do is I hold the spoke like this so it doesn't twist, and then I turn the nipple here and it holds the system in place without the spoke turning around. So I'm going to use that from now on during this build. Okay, this is the procedure then. We measure the tension. That looks okay. That looks a bit low, so stick the spoke holder on up here. Give the spoke a bit of a turn. Nipple, I mean. Measure it. Okay, that's gone back up. That's good. That's a bit low, so again, bring it up. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit high, so we need to drop that down a bit. There we go. Okay. When we go around the whole wheel, do that on the non-drive side as well, and then that means that all the spokes are evenly tensioned and the wheel is starting to take shape. From there, we're going to move across to the bike. We'll put the wheel in the frame. We will measure the distance between the left chainstay and the left brake surface, the right chainstay and the right brake surface. Then we will get the wheel absolutely central in the frame by adjusting the drive side or non-drive side nipples to shift the rim left or right. From there, we will then make sure the wheel is very, very straight by truing it. Now the truing procedure I'll show you later, but that basically involves just using the brakes on the bike as the indicators and then truing to that. We'll need to set the brakes so that they're absolutely central based on the rim being central in the frame. Again, that's for the next part of the video, but that's the procedure. So from here, I'm going to check all the tensions, bring it up slightly, because at the moment it's still only 50%. I think we could probably bring it up to about 70% of the total. Right, so the drive side is nicely tensioned up now to about 70% of the maximum target. Each spoke is the same tension now, perfect. You can see it's a lot harder than it was before. The non-drive side as well, every spoke is the same tension now. And the wheel is sitting pretty central over the axle, going by the truing stand. You know, we're not talking any accuracy at the moment, but it's definitely in the right area. So from here, we take it across to the bike, measure the frame in relation to the rim, as we explained before. Then what we will do is we will make a section of the rim in the perfect position in relation to the frame by adjusting the spokes. This will be the control area. From there, we will true the wheel against that position, so the wheel will be absolutely spot on all the way around.